welcome to another video. As you can tell from the title, today we are doing my 5-star predictions list. In a game of TBR Pursuit within the last few months, I'm pretty sure 5-star prediction came up and I had to look back at my last 5-star predictions video and realised that I've actually already read most of those now, so that list is just a little bit out of date. So I thought it was about time that I made a new one. So that's what we're here to do today, an updated list of my 5-star predictions. I have 10 books here. That seems like a good amount to do and a good amount for me to then work my way through whenever 5-star prediction comes up in TBR Pursuit. So without any further rambling, this is pretty self-explanatory. These are books I have not read yet that I think I will give 5 stars when I do read. Let's just get into it. The first book on here is the only book from the last video that I have not yet read, and it's one that I'm really procrastinating on, and that is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is a book that's been sitting on my TBR for the longest time. It is G from Book Roast's favourite book. She actually gifted me this a long time ago, and I haven't read it because I'm intimidated, basically. I know G loves it, my mum has read it, that's why this copy looks so battered and, yeah, beaten up. My mum has read it and loved it, and I really think when I read it, I'm gonna love it. I started the audiobook of this a long time ago and never finished it. I think I got like 200 pages in and stopped. So I need to start it again. I need to give it the time and attention it deserves, actually read it, and probably love it. I think it will be 5 stars for me. This is a book that is like held up to such high standards in like the world of adult fantasy. Everyone loves The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and everyone's always really angry about the fact that the 3rd book doesn't exist yet. So what this one is about, to my knowledge, is a man called Quoth. And I think he's telling his life story, like he's this elusive character, like everyone tells stories about his life but no one knows the true story, and the books are over the 3 days that it takes him to tell his full life story to this scribe. And I think he runs a pub at this point, like he runs an inn and the scribe goes and Quoth says, like, this is the one time I will tell you my life story, it will take us 3 days, let's go. And each book is a day of him telling the story of his life, which is this, like, crazy thing, and he's a man that can do everything, and he's fantastic, and he's great, and everything, but also, like, he's gonna be a bit of an unreliable narrator, because he's telling his life story. Of course, he's gonna think he's great. I think I'm gonna love this as much as everyone else does, so I look forward to the day when I can give this 5 stars, but when that will be, I don't know, because it intimidates me. Book number 2 on this list is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This, again, adult fantasy, slight chunker, but this one, I believe, is quite political, and I like a political fantasy, but also quite brutal. I think this follows a man who wants to take revenge, like he's a warrior or he's training to be a warrior, and he's really full of anger and revenge. A world caught in an eternal war, one young man will become his people's only hope for survival. Ooh. And I think it's something about every like 1 in 100 men is really powerful, and every 1 in 1,000 women can call dragons? Or something like that. 1 in every 2,000 women can call down dragons, and yeah, our main character is set on his mission for revenge, and he will do anything, and he wants to become the strongest, the most powerful in order to see this revenge through. So it sounds quite brutal, but also fantastical, because dragons, and action-packed with all of this like betrayal and fighting going on. And I'm sure I've heard that it's somewhat political as well, so I think I'm really gonna like this one. I've heard fantastic things about it, and I look forward to getting to it, and I do really think this has the potential to be a 5-star read for me. Next up, we have The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 2 in the Mistborn trilogy. I read The Final Empire not that long ago. It was a few months back, I think, and I expected to love that, and I did, and I gave it 5 stars, so I think the second one will be just as good, if not better, than the first one. So I'm very much looking forward to this. The Final Empire follows a young girl called Vin, who has some sort of sway with people, and she discovers that she is a Mistborn. And in this world, Mistborns can ingest metals that gives them certain powers, and you can either be an Allomancer, meaning you can only ingest and get the powers of one metal, or a Mistborn, which means you can get it from multiple. And Vin discovers she is a Mistborn, and she becomes part of this crew that plan to overthrow the Lord Ruler, who is not a very nice man. So that's the gist of the first one, and I don't actually know how the story is going to progress, because I think the first one wrapped up pretty nicely, but I look forward to diving into the second one and anticipate that it will also be a 5-star read for me. Next up on this list we have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This is another one that intimidates me a lot, but I think I'm gonna really enjoy. This one follows a young girl called Rin, and everyone in her life is really shocked and surprised when she aces this test to get into the most elite military school that there is. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be an easy journey for her, because she has to deal with all sorts of prejudices and rivalries with classmates, etc. So it's not easy for her. But she discovers along the way that she has some sort of ability, or she is particularly skilled, and she has to hone this ability to fight in a war. And I think it's also something to do with how preparing for a war is different to fighting a war, and then there is a war much closer on the horizon than they think there is, so they're preparing for that war. Lots of war talk, lots of fighting and training vibes going on here, but I've heard so many fantastic things about this, which makes me think I'm gonna absolutely love it. I have heard a lot of people say that there are bits in here that are potentially too graphic and too dark, but that just interests me more. One of my favourite books of all time has some really graphic torture scenes in it, which is could be a bit much for some people, but I want to know that. I want to see how that's written, because that interests me. If I can feel awfully uncomfortable reading something, that's a good thing for me. Like, that is a sign of a really well-written book, and I feel like this could potentially be one of those really well-written books that's going to make me feel many uncomfortable feelings, and I look forward to that in a weird way. But yeah, I've heard so many good things about it. I know a lot of people love this book, and I really hope that I will too. Next up, I have The Skyweaver by Kristen Cicerelli. This is the third and final book in the Last Namsara trilogy, which is a trilogy that I don't really talk about that much, but I have loved. I loved The Last Namsara, I loved The Caged Queen, and this is the third and final book in that trilogy, and I think I'm going to adore it. This one follows Sapphire, who is The Last Namsara's cousin stroke bodyguard character, and she meets a pirate, I believe, and they are sworn enemies, but their paths cross multiple times and they end up on a common mission and kind of having to work together in order to find the Last Namsara. It seems like it could be potentially enemies to lovers going on there, maybe, which might not seem like my sort of thing, but I've loved both books in this series. I love this world. I'm quite attached to these characters, despite the fact that it's a trilogy that I don't talk about very often. Like, I don't rave about loving The Last Namsara. I really do. And I loved the world, I love the politics, I love how everything has been set up in previous books. Each one follows a different main character, but it's still the same, like, one progressive story. So I'm really interested to see what happens in this one, and I've given the first one and the second one both 5 stars, so I see no reason why this one would be worse. So I think I'm gonna love it. but I might need to reread the first and second one before I go into this because it's been a little while. At the end of one world lies another. I'm really excited to get to this at some point, and I do think I'm gonna love it. So there's that one. Next up, we have Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. Second Brandon Sanderson book on this list. This is the sequel to Skyward, which is his YA sci-fi series, which follows a young girl called Spencer who really wanted to be a fighter pilot, however has lived in the shadow of her father, who was branded a traitor for abandoning his crew. I loved Skyward. It was fantastic. The characters were incredible. The plot blew me away. That was absolutely a 5-star read, and I see no reason why the sequel to that would be anything other. The way the last book ended leaves me very curious for how this one goes on. There are a lot of unanswered questions, and I am desperate to see how certain things pan out. So I'm very excited to get to this at some point. I see no reason why this one wouldn't be a 5-star read as well, because the first one definitely was. And I've learnt that I like Brandon Sanderson, apparently, because the 2 books of his I've read have been 5 stars, and then 2 more books of his have worked their way onto this list. So it's looking good for Brandon Sanderson, really, isn't it? Next up on this list, we have Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lynn. This one is mainly on here based on Gavin's recommendation. Gavin has loved this book, and I think it's like his second favourite middle grade ever, which puts it very high on a very long list, so I expect to love this as well. But this follows a young girl called Minley, whose father tells her stories of the old man in the moon who has answers to all of life's questions, and Minley decides to go on a journey to find the man in the moon, and along the way she meets all sorts of magical creatures, including a talking fish, a powerful king, and a dragon who can't fly. And Minley wants to know how she can bring good fortune to her family. That is what she wants to discover from the old man in the moon. So it sounds real sweet, but how much Gavin has loved and raved about this is the main reason it's on this list. Like, if it's that high up for him, I expect absolutely fantastic things from this, because other middle grades that he's rated 5 stars as well I've ended up really loving, so I have high hopes. Also, he said it reminds him of a Studio Ghibli movie, and I love Studio Ghibli movies, so if it has those sort of vibes, I do think I'm really going to enjoy this. So I look forward to diving into this one at some point. Very excited about that. Next up on this list, we have Ember and the Ice Dragons by Heather Fawcett. This is mainly on this list because it's Heather Fawcett, and I have loved other books from her that I have read, being Even the Darkest Stars and All the Wandering Light. I loved those very much, and it's another polar fantasy from a polar fantasy author that I know and love. This one follows a young girl called Ember St. George, I think? Ember St. George. But she's not a young girl, she's a dragon. However, her adopted wizard dad decides to disguise her dragonness in a young girl because she's unable to control her fire breathing, I think? Or when she's a young girl, she spontaneously bursts into flames or something because she's a dragon. So she is sent to Antarctica to live with the ice dragons. However, while she is there, she learns of this like ritual hunt where people will hunt down the ice dragons for their jewels and their scales. So Ember decides to join the hunt in order to sabotage it from the inside out because she is one of the dragons. It sounds fantastic, it sounds adorable, polar fantasy, middle grade, totally up my street, and Heather Fawcett as well, so I really think I'm going to enjoy this and I cannot wait to read it. Next up, we have The Ship of Shadows by Maria Kuznia. This one is kick-ass female pirates meets middle grade. Is that not everything that you want? In this one, our main character, Alasia, is a dreamer who dreams of magic and adventure, and the Ship of Shadows docks in her Spanish harbour city, and it's a pirate ship full of women, and I think Alasia wants to join the pirate ship. So she wants to join this crew, but she discovers that life aboard the Ship of Shadows is not everything that she bargained for, and there are trials to overcome in order to discover what they are risking everything to find. Sounds mysterious, sounds kick-ass, sounds like everything I'm gonna love. I know plenty of people have read and loved this one, and I really hope I'm gonna love it as well, hence why it's on this list. I think I will, so I'm looking forward to reading this one at some point. Also, it's absolutely beautiful. The cover is illustrated by Carl James Mountford, and every book I have read that has had its cover illustrated by Carl James Mountford I've ended up really loving, so that kind of goes in its favour as well. Not that it should, because it is a cover, and don't judge a book by its cover, but at this point, like, I just have good luck with books that are illustrated by him. I end up loving them, so all the stars are aligning for this to be a good book for me. And finally, the last book on this list is Moonchild, Voyage of the Lost and Found by Aisha Bushby. This sounds beautiful. This one is about a young girl, a 12-year-old girl called Amira, whose life is full of magic, despite the fact that she lives in a world where magic is kind of frowned upon. But literally everything about her life is magical. She has a cat who is a djinn, and she has two mums who are sea witches, so there's a bit of LGBTQ+ rep in there as well. But really? Right now? But yeah, her cat is a djinn, and there is a storm that causes the ship that she is travelling on to be damaged, and when she docks the damaged ship, her cat goes missing. And I think her cat is potentially stolen by this, like, magical firebird, and then she has to go on a journey to recover her cat, save her cat from wherever her magical genie cat is. But she meets someone else along the way who also has a djinn companion, which is rare, apparently. So there is magic and adventure on the horizon for Amira, and it sounds really my cup of tea. I just feel like I'm really going to enjoy this. And it's inspired by the Arabian Nights as well, so this sounds great. And again, it's one I've heard fantastic things about. It sounds beautiful. Everyone that I know of that's read it has really enjoyed it. And it just sounds like my cup of tea. It sounds like something I would really enjoy. It sounds like it's going to be quite atmospheric and beautifully written, and I'm totally there for that. And the cover is gorgeous, so there we go. And that is the end of this list. They are the 10 books that I am pitching as my 5-star predictions. Fingers crossed most of them come through, that would be nice. If you have read any of these and think that they will be 5 stars for me, let me know down below. But that brings us to the end of this. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, give us a thumbs up, and of course chat to me down below, and I will see you in whatever I put out next. Bye!